Hi guys, Lynn from the Paper Addict here today with a Scraplift video. I'm scraplifting Laura Alberts, who scraplifted Inky Quill. But I hadn't seen the Inky Quill one. I had just seen hers on the Crafty Maven Facebook group. So that is the one that I am scraplifting. This is my Felicity Jane kit that you saw in the last video. I chose it to continue with because that darker green matched the green of our wedding cake. It's pretty sad. We'll be married 14 years this year, and I'm still working on scrapping wedding pictures. So nobody could be as behind as I am. So the first thing you saw me do is I cut several of the papers. I did 1-inch squares and then just cut them in half. I did cut a lot of that out. You'll see there's a lot of clipping in this video because a lot of it just took, a lot of time. Not a lot of time. Like, I don't want to say this layout took me forever to do, but it's tedious to watch me make these little, triangles into squares and match them up. So I did leave some of it in just for you to see what I'm doing, but I did clip a lot of it out. So what I ended up trying to do was not have two patterns directly next to each other, which ended up being more difficult than I thought, especially with the black and whites. But the rest of the colors in this kit just weren't right, so I used more black and white patterns to match the colors in my photo. So I did have some trouble. I actually thought about abandoning this layout as I was doing it. I walked away for a day and came back, and the idea that got me to finish the layout is I then cut out 1-inch squares of white cardstock just from what I had cut down to make this a 9x12. And I ran them through my big Xyron and made them sticky, and then attached my triangles onto them so that when I placed them around, they weren't constantly shifting because every little piece. I think that's what was throwing me off here, is I felt like I could never get a good look because anytime you bumped the paper even the slightest bit, the triangles would separate. So here they are on those 1-inch squares. I'm just going to glue them down. I started with my ATG gun, but since they were so little, I was having all this overhang glue, so I do switch over to liquid glue. And I leave this on for just a little bit, and then I cut out the rest because you can see me glue on squares, and I'm sure you know how to glue on squares yourself. But I'm so sad. This cake makes me happy and sad all at the same time. Obviously, I'm happy because it was our wedding day, and it was just how I wanted it. I'm sad because just in the last month, this bakery has closed. It's been around for a long, long time. I don't know exactly how many, but longer than I've been alive, so at least 40 years. Not that I'm 40 yet, but we're getting there. But the owner got ill, and even though her daughters have worked in the bakery their entire lives, they closed it to be able to take care of her in her final time. And I respect that as a family person, but we're sad for the bakery aspect of it. And we have not been able to find a replacement that is as good, so we will miss them. But now what I'm doing is I got out my, I think it's their Kaiser Craft, I believe, pens, and I have swatched each one just on that scrap piece of paper, and I matched up the colors to the colors in my little squares, and I'm just doing some doodling on some of those squares to make them pop off the white background just a little bit better. So I used a black, a pink, and a green. Obviously not putting the green on the green or the pink on the pink. And now I needed a border on my photo, but everything I tried or thought about just for me visually was too heavy. So I went with the white tissue paper because you can see it when you put it up against the white cardstock, but it's not heavy. Like I don't know if I'm making any sense whatsoever, but visually white cardstock on white cardstock was just too much. So the tissue paper was perfect. And you saw me use my double-sided tape, that is Suk Wang tape. And you're going to want to either use that, another double-sided tape, red line tape. I would not suggest liquid glue because the tissue paper will, it'll warp with that many layers. I can do it for one layer. Like when I put down the fun foam, you'll see I use liquid glue, but if I use it for every one of the tissue paper layers, it's like it disintegrates because there's too much wet. And ATG and tissue paper or doilies just don't get along. So I had a thought about using some of my gelato to make kind of like a splattering out the sides of the cake, like the left-hand side, but I didn't have the right color. And as I look at the layout on my desk now, I'm glad I didn't. It's one of those things where you think it's good at the time, and when you're done, you're glad you didn't do it. So now I'm just drawing a border with a black pen I got. It's a set I got off of AliExpress because I tend to lose pens pretty quickly. So I always just buy a bunch of cheapies with thin points. But I did that to tie the white base cardstock together with the triangles since they have some doodling around them as well. So working on a title. It's going to turn out to be Let Us Eat Cake. One of the reasons that's funny is not only, the French thing of let them eat cake, but I did not get to eat our wedding cake. I put my piece of cake down to hug a guest who was leaving and turned around and the staff had cleaned it up. So the title is fitting. And it's a running joke in our family because when we had the baby shower for our son, first grandchild in the family, our first child, they cut me, seriously, the biggest piece of cake I have ever seen. And they're like, we're making sure you get cake this time. So, yeah, title's fitting for our little story. But both of these alphabets are from Felicity Jane. The tile alphabet was part of this particular kit. The white alphabet was from a kit I had already killed. But I do keep all of my Felicity Jane things, the leftovers, in that little box you see on my left. That way, if I'm short on embellishments or I want something that I know is most likely going to match in color, I can just pull that box out. Or even style. If I want something to match in style, even if it's not the exact color match, I have my Felicity Jane box. So again, lots of outlining in this layout. The white on white was nice for the title since the triangle, square type things are so busy, but the outlining just makes it pop just enough. So now I'm going to go through and put heart and circle embellishments on to certain of the square triangle type things. To me, they're squares, but, and I'm saying triangles, but what I really mean is diamond. The triangles are the halves, but yeah, I see squares, but I could see how someone could see just the triangles or, you know, a diamond shape. But I'm going to take just hearts that I punch out of gold and silver, gold and black, glitter cardstock, and then some from the scraps of the kit that I have, and put them in certain blocks so there's some interest to some blocks. And then I'm going to pop some of them up on foam squares. Some of them I will leave flat. That way there is some contrast in depth and keeps it, you know, visually interesting. There's my piece of gold glitter. I have no idea where that came from, and I'll be very upset when it is gone, because it's the perfect weight. It's, you know, it's glitter, but it is not thick. I can get a perfect punch out of that piece of paper. I will also get out sooner or later. Felicity Jane, in this particular kit, had a small pot of heart embellishments. There were like 3 different sizes. And I will use the tiniest one and the larger one in a few different places. The only thing I will say about these, they are adorable, but they're just like sequins in the fact that I may stick them in the freezer, the whole entire pot just as is, because the static is horrible. You can't get just one out, and then you can't get them off your fingers. So the last thing I'm going to do, you'll see me get out my trusty Heidi Swap Color Shine. I have black and gold. I have many different colors, but I find I really go for the gold, which I'm hoping that comes back in some form someday. Right now I have a bottle and a half, so I'm good to go. And I use either the black, which I can still find, or the tinsel, which is like a gray that I haven't been able to find any longer. So again, I'll be sad when that's done. But let's see, are they coming? Yep, there they are. And you'll see I cut it out because I sat for a good while. I couldn't get the cap open on the black one, and I had to ask my husband to do it. Thank goodness he was home. But you know what? I don't know what I did to that cap. He had to go get some kind of tool from the garage to grip it, because even he couldn't get it open. But other than that, I'm pretty well done. Thank you so much for watching with me. I'll be sure to see if I can find some links to Laura's works, whether she has a blog or an Instagram, and I'll put those down below. And I will catch you again soon. It'll be the new year by the next time you see me, so everyone have a safe, happy, and healthy new year, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Thanks so much. Bye.